Managing and troubleshooting DHCP. Now, what are the DHCP security options we have? Limit physical access to the network by disconnecting unused LAN drops and required authenticated layer 2 connections. So we can do what? We can limit the physical access to the network by disconnecting the unused LAN drops. So whenever you see the LAN drops or LAN ports are there which is not used, so we should remove them, we should disconnect them. That also required the authentication or required authenticated layer 2 connections. Authenticated layer 2 connection, that means which we are layer 2, that means the switch connections. So that must be authenticated. We can configure the authentication for the connections on the switches. Then enable DHCP auditing to track the DHCP uses. In DHCP we should enable the logging auditing option so that we can audit who is using and how the DHCP is used. Then DHCP name protection. Prevent Windows operating system from having their DNS name registration overwritten by non-Windows operating system using the same name. Now this is what protection for the name in DNS. Now DNS, we will see what is DNS. DNS basically do what? It resolve the name to IP, because in network all the communication done on based on the IP addresses. IP addresses, that means if you want to connect some machine, then you need to know the IP address of that particular machine. Now if you have 2-3 machines, then you can remember the IP addresses of those machines. But if you have multiple machines, for example you have 500 machines, now it is not possible for you to remember all those IP addresses of 500 machines. Now a human tendency is that what we can remember names instead of numbers. This is what the human behavior, we can say. Like we can remember the numbers, we can remember the names, we can remember 500 names, but we cannot remember 500 numbers or IP addresses. So DNS do what? DNS help us to resolve the numbers, resolve the name of the IP addresses. That means if suppose we want to connect those 500 different machines, then we don't need to remember the IP addresses of those machines. We need to know the name of those machines. So when we want to connect those machines, we will use the name of those machines. But remember, by the name communication is not happened. So our name query will go to DNS server, and in the DNS server there is a record that which name has which IP addresses. Now DNS has all the records of name and IP addresses. That means in DNS we have a record that this is the name of the machine and this is the IP address of the machine. So we have all those records stored into the DNS server. Now when the IP address and name are stored in the DNS server, now remember, if the IP address is given by the DHCP server, so what happened? Those IP address may change. Now may change, that means if suppose machine 1, PC1 has this one IP address today, so from tomorrow maybe that machine may have the different IP address. Now who is going to update that? So it is what? Machine itself update that addresses on DNS server. Now when the machine changes the IP address with the DHCP, like the IP address lease period is expired, now the machine asks for the new IP, renewal of the IP address to DHCP. DHCP gives the different IP than the previous one. Then the machine do what? It will send the request to the DNS server that I want to update my machine IP, and then it will update the IP of that machine. Like PC1 will update the IP of its own and it will update the record. Now there is a problem here when some machines, some old machines are not able to update their records in DNS server by itself. Now for them, DHCP can do update the records on DNS server. That is what DHCP itself update the record of that machine. Like when the IP address change for that particular machine, so DHCP will send the request of updating the record in DNS. Now this thing can be a problem because some hackers can do what? Can use this feature to update the wrong records in DNS server. Like suppose the web server is having different IP address, and the attacker do what? It will send the request spoofing the DHCP address. Like it will say that it will assume, it will impersonate like DHCP is sending the request in the DNS server to update the record, and it will do what? It will update the record of that real real web server to the fake web server, and then whoever wants to connect that real web server, they will redirect it to the fake web server. So we have to prevent the Windows operating system from having their DNS name registration overwritten by non-Windows operating system using the same name. So first we have to make sure that the Windows operating system name should not be overwritten by the other operating system like Linux or some other operating systems in DNS. That we have to configure in DNS. Then also uses the DHCP ID resource record to track the devices that originally requested that DNS name registration. So by the DHCP ID, we can track that who requested for the DNS registration for the name. Now these things we can configure it in DNS also. This DNS security, we have option these to configure this. Then we have some advanced options for configuring DHCP. First, policy-based assignment allow you to base IP assignment on the following criteria. Now, when we configure the DHCP, we have configured. So in that, we have the option to create the policy filters. So we can create the filter based on vendor classes defined by the hardware vendor, user classes defined by the administrator, and MAC addresses and fully qualified domain name FQDN, and also relay agent information. So we can use these policies to filter the IP addresses allocation. That means we can say that for the specific vendor, that means the hardware vendor defined by the hardware vendor class, we want to provide this IP addresses. We can also say like user class, we can say the MAC address filtering, we can add the MAC address filtering, we can add the fully qualified domain names. Also we can add the relay agent informations. This all thing we can configure in the policies. This is our DHCP server here, and in this we have a scope. So this is our scope which is running right now. It is active. You can see it is active. So the policies option we have here. Here we can create the policies, and also we can create the filters also. Now under the policies, we can go on to click right click. Right now there is no policy for the scope. So there is no policy for the server, and also there is no policy for the scope. Remember, this policy option is under the scope. Now under the scope, that means this will apply only on this scope, and the policy which we apply here under the server, this policy will apply to all the scopes we have in this server. So the policies are same whether we use here or there. Only the difference is the applying, like where it is applied. This will apply only on this particular scope, and these policies will apply on all the scopes. So how we can configure the policies? We can go on to right click, and then we can select to create the policy here. And when you go on to create the policy, you should make a name here, like I will say my new policy. Here you can decide what you want. Configure the condition for the policies. So you can add here, and you have the vendor class for the hardware vendor. Then you have the user class defined by the administrators. Then you have the MAC addresses filters. You can add the MAC addresses here. You can say equal to, not equal to. That means if the MAC address is equal to this, what value you give here, then you can say what you want to do. Or you can say the client identifier. You can add the fully qualified domain name also. Then you can also add like relay agent information. So let's say fully qualified domain name. That means the full name of machine. Well, I will say server3.sci.com. and then we can add it here. We can add it as a prefix only, or we can add the prefix in wildcard, append the wildcard. We'll add it here. So we have decided this name equal to, we have decided that fqdn is equal to this value. Then we can add more conditions here. Right now it is or means this or that, or if you want and relation, then we can create and relation also, that means this and this. If you have multiple conditions, then you can go on to select what you have selected or condition. Like I have given only one, but we can go on to select more. So if I say fully qualified name is this, or the vendor class is this, then to do what? To only to do apply the policy, to do give the IP addresses to those machines. So we can finish and create the policy, so it will match the policy before giving IP, before allocating the IP addresses. So we can create the policies based on these informations: vendor class, user class, MAC addresses, FQDN, relay agent information, so that we can allow you to base IP assignment on the following criteria. So we can allow them to have the IP addresses. So this is the advanced option configuration. Then we have option to configure the super scope and multicast scope also. Now super scope and multicast scope also, this is what it is. First, super scope. Super scope is to just manage the multiple scope. It is to manage the multiple scope, we can use the super scope. So we can create a super scope by combining the multiple scope. Remember, in single DHCP server we can create multiple scopes. Now why we create multiple scope? Because suppose our DHCP server is connected to multiple different subnets. Now it can give the IP addresses to all those different subnets. So for those different subnets we can create a different scopes also. For example, if you want to create multiple scope, let's create it in our DHCP. Right now we have this scope already created for 192.168.0.1. Now suppose our DHCP server is connected to another network, another subnet. I want to have a scope for that subnet also, so I can create more subnets. So I will go on to select new scope again, and then I will mention it a name for like this is for the HRs. Then I will mention the range. I will say this will be 1.1 to 1.254. This is another network. This one is 192.168.0.1. This is 1.1. I will not add any exclusion. Lease period will be this. DNS and DHCP, I'll go with this. Router address will be for this subnet. I'm going to say the address is this. Okay, I should remove this address. I should exclude this address because I'm using it for the router. So I'm excluding that address from here. Then DNS server IP address, it has using the same which is already there, so I will go with that. Same DNS for everyone, no win, and I will activate the scope also. So I have two scopes now. One is this one and the other one is this one. Then we can have more scopes. So same as these two scopes, we can have more scopes. We can create more scopes for more different subnets. But remember, our DHCP server must be connected to all those subnets to provide the IP address to all those different subnets. If it is not connected to those subnets, then it will not be able to provide the IP address to those different subnets. So it need to be connected to all those different subnet to provide the IP address. Now, how the DHCP server knows that which subnet or which scope is to give when some client asks for the IP address, so from which scope it has to give the IP address. Right now we have these three scopes, 1, 2 and 3. Now when a client asks for the IP address, so how the DHCP server knows that which scope I should give the IP address, that is also important. Now this is decided based on the source, the IP address on the DHCP server adapter. Now for example, this is our DHCP server. Now this DHCP server is connected to three different subnets: 192.168.1.0, 192.168.2.0, 192.168.3.0. Now these are three subnets. Now for giving the IP addresses to these subnets, we have configured three pools here, three scopes here, three scopes for each subnet. Now when the request comes to the DHCP server, then how DHCP server knows that which scope IP should provide. Now because the client who is sending the request, that client does not have any information. It does not know that which network it is, which subnet this client is residing. It does not know what is the DHCP server's IP address. It does not know what is the network it belongs to. It does not know anything about the network. Only it knows about its own MAC address. So when it sends the request to the DHCP server, so the server, how the DHCP server knows that which scope IP it should give to this machine, this client. Now this is decided based on the request receiving port. So remember, if the request is received from this port which is having configured IP of this subnet IP, it is having this subnet IP. So when the request received on this port, then the DHCP server knows that the request is for this particular scope which is configured for this subnet. So it based on the interface and the network IP of that interface decides that which scope IP should be given to that client. So if the request comes from this interface, so the IP will be given from that scope which is configured for this network. And if the request comes from this interface, so it will give the IP address from the scope which is configured for this network, the IP address which is configured for that network. So if we have DHCP connected to multiple different subnets, so we can configure the different subnet scopes for different subnets in our single DHCP server. Now to manage those different scopes, we can do what? We can configure the super scope by combining those multiple scopes. So if suppose we have multiple different scopes created, then we can manage them easily by creating a different super scopes. Like for example, all these networks, all these subnets are belong to a city, a single city. Then in another city or another department, we have different subnets. So we can create one super scope with combining of these subnets. Then for the other scopes, we can create another super scope. So we can use the super scope to manage the multiple scopes. So we can create the super scopes. So as we see here, we have these different scopes created, scope for the sales, HR and accounts. Now we want to manage them singly, so we can do what? We can create a super scope. We can right click here and we can go for creating the new super scope. We click onto new super scope, and then what? We'll go next. We will name this super scope for our Mumbai department, and then we will add what scopes we want to add for this. We can add the scopes which we want to add it into this super scope. We select them, then next, and then finish. Done. Now you can see there is no those three scopes are not showing here, because now they are under this super scope. So when you open the super scope, you can see all those scopes. Now it is easily understandable, like this all scopes are belong to this Mumbai department. So when I open it, I can see these are the scopes, and under the scope we can see the informations. So this is what the super scope. Now multicast scope, we can also create multicast scope. Now this multicast scope is for the multicast data, multicast transmission. If you read it here, it says that Wizard help you to create the multicast scope, which is a group of multicast network addresses that are distributed to other computers in a network. And multicasting is the process of sending message to a selected group of clients. So we can create a multicast addresses, a group of multicast addresses scope also, to provide the multicast addresses to different machines. Now we have high availability option for DHCP also. Now for example, if in a big network, DHCP is important because it is giving the IP addresses to machine, and if suppose the DHCP server is not available, so client will not get the IP addresses and it will not be able to join the network. What happen? It will go for the APIPA addresses, and APIPA addresses are different than the normal network address you have. So the machine which will not get the IP addresses, they will go disconnected. So we should make sure that the DHCP server must be available every time. So we have the high availability options for DHCP also. The first option, we can configure the DHCP cluster. We can configure DHCP under the cluster also. Cluster, that means we can configure the failover cluster for DHCP. So we can configure the failover cluster. If one server goes down, then the other server will start giving the IP addresses. But remember, in DHCP we should not have two servers active at the same time. We should not use a load balancing cluster. Why? Because in load balancing cluster, what happens? Both the servers are running and they share the loads. But here, if suppose we have two servers running for the same scope, a single scope, then it can be a problem here, because the client will get the IP address from one DHCP server, and the other client will get the IP address from the other DHCP server, and they will get the same IP addresses, and then it will create a problem. So if we have a single scope, so we should not add that single scope on multiple DHCP servers. So if we are configuring the clusters, DHCP server on clusters, so we can configure the DHCP cluster on failover cluster, which has the and if the one server goes down, automatically the other server will be available. Now that is failover cluster. But without a failover cluster, we can also use the high availability options. The first option for the high availability, we have this DHCP split scope. We can configure this DHCP split scope to make sure that DHCP server is available every time. So for example, as I said, you should not have two servers running for the single scope, because it can create a problem. So what we can do, we can create two servers for the single scope, but we split the scope from one server to other server. Now in this case, there is no chance for giving the same IP addresses by two different servers. So for example, we have only one server for DHCP, and all the clients are getting IP address from here, and we have configured one scope here. The scope is for our network, like we have one scope configured here. Now if suppose this server is not available, then what happened? It will not provide the IP addresses to the client, and the client will go use the APIPA address, and it will not able to connect the network. So what we can do here, we can have two servers for making sure that this will be available every time. Now when we configure the two servers, then it can become a problem also. Now in a failover cluster environment, if we configure this on failover cluster, then one server will be active and other server will remain inactive. And the database for the server is located into the shared storage. So when the one server goes down, the automatically other server will start working. So we will not have a problem here. But when you have two server configured without a failover cluster configuration, then what the problem you will have? You have to create the same scope in both the servers, right? Because we want to give the same IP addresses to everyone, whether it is given by server 1 or server 2. So suppose this server 1 is having a scope from 1 IP dot 1 to IP dot 2, just for example. So I have to create the same scope here. So in this scope also I will use the same scope. That means the IP address I want to give is from dot 10 to dot 1 to dot 10. Now what will be the problem here? If suppose one machine gets the IP address from this client, so it will get 1 here. Now the other client will try to get the IP address, but it will not able to get it from here, so it will get the IP address from here. Now this server 2 don't know that which IPs are allocated, because it is having the whole same range as this this server is having. So maybe this server will give the same IP address to this one, and the same IP will be 1. So this machine is getting the same IP, this machine is also getting the same IP. Why? Because it is getting from different server, it is getting from different server. Then what happened? The IP will be conflicted. The IP will be conflicted in both the sites here and here also. Now this server will report here that the IP is conflicting, and this server will report here that this client will report here in this server this IP is conflicting. Now both the servers will do what? They will remove that IP from allocation. It will mark that IP as a bad IP, and they will not provide this IP to anyone. Now that IP will be wasted. Now if suppose again next IP, same IP they have given to two different machines, again it will conflict, that IP will also go to bad IP. So like this it can be a problem here, and maybe it can go whole 10 IPs in the bad IP. So this is not the idea. It will not work. So what we can do, we can use the failover cluster for it, or either we can use a new feature available now in Windows servers, in Windows Server 2012 and Windows Server 2016. It is called scope splitting. So instead of creating the same scope here and in server 1 and server 2, what we can do, we can split the scope. For example, the range of IP addresses we have from 1 to 10. So I will say server 1 will have IP addresses from 1 to 6. Then server 2 will have IP addresses from 7 to 10. Now this one is having the more share of IP addresses, because this server is more powerful than the other server. So everyone should get the IP addresses from here. Now in case if this server is not available, suppose this server is not available, so whoever wants to get the IP address, they can go to this server. Now how the client knows that this server is not available? It is because of the delay. We configure the delay here in seconds. So for example, I say delay is 10 seconds. So when the client wants the IP addresses, it will send the discover packet, and it will wait for the response, and if the response is not coming from this server, like this server is not able to respond within 10 seconds, then this server will respond after the 10 seconds, because both are getting the discover packets. This one also they are getting the discover packet, but both will wait for 10 seconds. So if within 10 seconds this server will not respond, so server 2 will respond after 10 seconds. It will say, okay, I am available, and then it will provide the IP address from this scope, this range. Now because this is the other range, this is the separate, this is the range splitted here, so it will not have a IP conflict, because server 2 will provide different IP addresses, server 1 will provide the different IP addresses. So by using this splitting, we can make sure that DHCP server is always available for the clients, whether the client is new and asking for the IP addresses, or the client wants to renew the IP addresses. Both will get the IP addresses. So this is what DHCP split scope. As you can see here, in this server A, it is having the range from 192.168.1.150, and the server B is having 151 to 254, and the delay configuration set to 500 milliseconds. So after 500 millisecond wait, if server A is not responding, then the server 2 will wait, server 2 will start responding. So this is what DHCP split scope. Then we have the other option also available in new Windows Server, that is called DHCP failover. Now what is DHCP failover? It enables two DHCP server to provide IP addresses and optional configuration to the same subnet or the scope. That means we can use the same scope and we can configure it in two different servers, and we can use the failover. Now instead of configuring the failover cluster, we can configure directly the failover relationship between two DHCP servers. So we don't have to configure the whole configuration of failover clustering. We can use two DHCP server and we can configure the failover relationship between these two servers. It requires the failover relationship to have a unique names. Then support the host standby mode and the load sharing mode also. Now in this failover, DHCP failover, we can configure the standby mode also, hot standby. That means one server will be active and the other server will be inactive. Or also we can configure the load balancing. Load balancing will work like a splitting, scope splitting. Then when you use DHCP failover, this MCLT determines when a failover partner assumes control of the subnet or scope. So the failover happens and it will assume, the partner will assume that how to control and who is going to control the subnet and scope based on the MCLT. The auto state which switch over interval determines when a failover partner is considered to be down. So when we configure the failover, we have these options there. So state switch over interval define that the other partner is down, and this the other partner is to take over the control of the scope. Message authentication can validate the failover messages which is sent from one server to other server. Then firewall rules are auto configured during the DHCP installation. So when we configure the DHCP, we install the DHCP, so the rules of the firewall is automatically configured. Now if we want to configure the DHCP failover, then these are the prerequisites we need. First, your system must meet the following two minimum requirements. That means we need an active scope on which you want to configure the failover. So we need an active scope. Then we need a running partner also. That means we need another server. We need one server with the active scope. Then we need the other server also, that will be called as a partner server. So when first server is on, so client will send a request to that server. Now if that server goes down, then what? It will switch over, it will fail over to other server. Then client will start sending the request to other server. Now for configuring the scope splitting or failover, we need two DHCP servers. So this is one of the server, we have server2.site.com, and in this server we have one scope created. So this is the scope we have. In this scope it has all these addresses. It is having the range from 192.168.0.210 to 192.168.0.254. These are the IP addresses it is have to distribute. Now we have one more server we have, which is server 3. And on server 3 we can see there is no scope. We have no scope on server 3. We don't have any scope here. So what we can do, we can configure the scope splitting first. Then I will show you the failover scope. So on server 2 we have this scope and we want to configure this scope for high availability. So the first option we have is scope splitting. Now how I can do that? I can go to the property of this scope, and in that we have option, not on here. So on the scope which we want to split, right click, in advanced we have this option, split the scope. So when you split the scope, that scope will be split into two, and you will decide which is the other server which is going to hold the other part. So when you select this, it says, it opens this wizard to split the scope. We'll go next. Now it says add your partner server. At the partner server, this is one, the host server will be server 2. This will be having the more part of this split scope, and the other part is going to the other server. So you have to add the other server here. Now for adding the other server, you have to check and give the name of that other server, or you can browse it also. So I have added the other server name here, and I will press OK. Now it is checking that whether the other server is valid or not. Valid, that means the other server is having the DHCP role installed or not, and it is also authorized in the Active Directory domain or not. So it has checked all those things, and then it is saying okay, this server is added. Now we'll do what? We'll go to press next. And in the next step, you have to decide that how much number of IPs you want to give to host, and how much number of IPs you want to give to the other server. So by default, it is what, 80 and 20% different. You can see here the host server is getting the 80%, and the other server is getting the 20%. Because the host server is the main server, we are using the other server only for the emergency use. Like if the host server is not available in case, then the other server will use, and it will provide the IP information to the clients. So this is what the load from this 192.168.0.210 to 192.168.0.254. We are giving more 80% IPs to host server and the 20% IPs to other server. Now it will do what? It will create the exclusion. Now how it will divide the IP addresses from one server to other server? It will actually create the exclusion. In one server, it will create the exclusion of these IPs which is not giving to that server, and in the other server it will create the exclusion of that IPs which is not given to that server. We can change this 80 to 70, 30, we can change it to 50-50 also. I will go with the 80-20. Then next, here you have to decide the delay for the host server and delay for the DHCP server which we have added. So you can go on to select that how much delay they should wait to start giving the IP addresses. For example, for the host server, because this is my main server, so I am giving 0. So it is they start giving the IP addresses directly. On this add server, I set 500. So 500 milliseconds. So if within 500 milliseconds, if the host server is not providing the IP address, still the client is sending discover packet, so the other server will start providing the IP address to that client. So this is what we configured, and we can finish now. So now it says everything is successfully created. We can close it. Now what is the change we have here? In server 2, this is having the 80%. So it has the IP address here. You can see 192.168.2.10 to 2.54. Let me refresh it, and you will see now the exclusion here. Now within this total range, now the IP addresses from 246 to 254 is not available here for this server. That means this range is not, this server will not provide this range. So this range is not available for this server. So this range will be given to the other server. Now we'll check the other server. So in server 3, there was no scope created. Now when I refresh it, I can see the scope here. Now the scope I can see here, and in the scope, if you see the lease addresses, so you can see the addresses is lease this, total lease is this, from 210 to 254, but from 210 to 245 is excluded from here. That means this is the range is available on server 2. And after this, So this range is excluded, and after this the range is available on this server, and before this, that means the range which is excluded here in server 3 is available on server 2. So both server can provide the scope, can provide the IP addresses for the same scope, but the IP addresses are excluded here, which is on server 2, and on server 2 the IP addresses are excluded, which is available in server 3. So by this they can do what? They can both provide the IP addresses to the client. Now the server 2 will be the 80% is share, like 80% the 80% of IP addresses. Now if the server is not able to respond within a second, within a 500 millisecond, then the server 2, server 3 will start giving the IP addresses and responding with the IP addresses. Now for configuring the failover, again we need two servers. We have server 2 here, and we also have server 3. On server 3 we don't have any scope. We have a scope on server 2, and we want to create failover for this scope. So what we can do, we can configure the failover by right clicking on the scope, and we can configure the failover from here, or we can right click on this IPv4, and then also we can configure the failover. Now failover, that means when we configure the failover, so what it will do, from the server it will show you the option to select the scope, and by default it says select all the scopes. Right now we have only one scope, or if you select directly from the scope, so it will select the particular scope already. It is already selecting the whole scope. So first you have to start the configuration of failover. Either you can start it from here on IPv4, or you can start it from here also on directly on the scope. So when you start the failover configuration, it says which scope you want to configure for failover. So you will select the scopes which you want to configure for failover if you have multiple scopes, or you can select the all scopes. You can select one by one, or you can select the all scopes. Then go next. Now here you have to select the partner server which can be used as a failover. So we can add the server here, and I'm going to add the server 3 here. So I'll go on to browse. On server 3 we have installed the role, this DHCP role, but there is no scope created. Now again it is checking the server with whether it is authorized or not, whether it is having the role installed or not. So if it is installed and authorized, then it will show you the name without any error. Otherwise it will give error. Now it is configured. So we'll go next. Now here we can set the relationship. This will be the relationship name, like server2.server3. You can change the name whatever you want. Now here you have to select the relationship mode. Load balance is the default, or you can go for hot and standby. Now when you select the load balance, so you have the other option, and when you select the hot standby, you will get the other option. So load balance, you will see what options you get. First you will set the maximum client lead time. This is the MCLT. So this MCLT decides the lead time of the client, like which server is leading first in load balance or whether it is on standby. So it decides the lead time. This is MCLT. And this load balancing percentage defines the percentage of load we want to give in load balance. Now if we are configuring the load balance, so it says which server will get more load. Local server, the server where we are configuring right now, that is server 2, or the remote server, that is server 3. By default it is 50-50. So all both the servers will get the 50% load. Or we can decide the standby. When you select the standby, then you can decide which server will work as a standby and which server will work as a active server. So you can select the hot standby configuration. You can select the role of the partner server. Role of the partner server, that means this is the main server, server 2, and the partner server is server 3. So here it is saying that create a new failover relationship with the partner server, server 3. So what you want to do with partner server? You want to make it standby or you want to make it active? So you can decide the role of the partner server. Let's say I will say standby. Then you will have to decide the addresses reserved for the standby server. Now it is only giving what? 5%. 5%. Why? Because the active server will be the main server, and standby server will give you only the time to make the active server active again. Like suppose the active server goes down, so this standby server will take over the things, and it will give IP addresses and really renew the IP addresses. And then if the new IP address is required, so it has 5% new IP addresses, so that it can give the new IP addresses also, and it can renew other IP addresses. So it will give the time for us to start the active server again. And by this we can make sure that the server will be the DHCP server will be available every time. Now when we use the split scope, that split scope is particularly for only that scope, but we can configure the failover relationship for all the scopes available in the server. So it will do what it will use for all the scopes, but the split scope option is only for that particular scope. So this is the difference here. Then also in a split scope we have only the load balancing feature, where we can only balance the loads, but in this failover we have the standby option also, where we can use the standby mode. Now here we have the state switchover interval, that means how many time after the switchover will happen. If you want to switch the server from server 2 to server 3 after some time, so you can decide the time. By default it is not selected because we are doing hot and standby. So you should we don't want to switch every time. We want the active server will have the all load. Then we can enable the message authentication. Now remember, in failover both the server will send the message to each other to know that the server is running or not running. So the server which is on standby, it will send the message to the server which is running and keep checking that the server is running or not. So if the message sent by the standby server and the active server not respond, then what? The standby server feels that the server which is active is now dead, and then now I can active and I can become active and I can take over the scope. So those messages, we have to secure those messages. Otherwise some hacker can do what? It can send the false messages, and then it can make both the servers active, and it can do what? It can do denial of service attack or something. So we should secure the messages between these two failover servers. So for securing we use shared secret, and without shared secret you can see we cannot go next. So we have to provide the shared secret here. This is the shared secret will be configured for both the servers. So both the server will send the request, the authentication message by using encryption. This by doing the encryption using this shared secret. So this is what we have configured, and now we will say finish. And now it is configured successfully. Now when we check here, it is not like a split scope. It is not adding any exclusion here. So the whole range is available on server 2, and also the whole range is available on server 3 also. So let's check the server 3 now. On server 3 it is not showing anything. I will refresh it, and now I can see the scope. Now the scope is saying that it is active, but the scope is not active. It is not giving IP addresses to anyone because right now it is on standby. So we can see here, we can see the go to the properties, and we can see the failover option here. So under the failover option we can see the relationship between the server, who is the partner, what is the mode, and maximum client lead time is this, and the switchover is disabled. State of this server is normal and state of the partner server is normal. That means right now both the servers are running normal. What is the role for this server is standby. So this server role is standby with the 5% of reserved IP addresses. And the other server, when you check the other server, and also when you see the lease addresses, there is no exclusion here like split scope. And the other server, the server which is server 2, which is the main server. On the main server, when we go to properties of this, we can see the failover, and we can see what this same, and this server role is what? Active. So if this server goes down, then the other server will start working for this scope, and then it will start giving the IP addresses to other scope, the clients. What options we have for this failover? We have the deconfiguration of failover. If you want to remove the failover configuration, we can replicate the scope, we can replicate the relationship also. If suppose this server goes down, and if this server has something else, like suppose those servers are disconnected, we have created new exclusion, new options, then we can replicate the scope from this server to that server. We can also do what? Replicate the changes. Then we can replicate the relationship also. Right now this is active, so we can replicate the relationship, update the relationship with the both servers. And also we can do what? We can deconfigure the failover. So if we don't want to have a failover relationship, then we can deconfigure it. Now it is removed. The failover configuration is now removed. Now when you right click, you will not see any option to of failover. You will see only option to configure the failover. And when you go to server 3 now, so this is the partner server. When I refresh this, you can see the scope is gone. It is automatically the scope is gone because we have removed the failover relationship. So now this server does not have that scope available. So this is what we configure the failover, and we also remove the failover. What other options we have? We have option to maintain the database of DHCP. DHCP database, that means the available options for the scope options, the exclusion, all the information about the DHCP, that what are the scopes we have, what are the range we have created, what are the scope options we have created. All those information is considered as a database, and it is called the DHCP database, and it is kept into the file called dhcp.mdb, and it contains the information relating the scopes, leases, reservation, and all other configuration information. Now the default location of the DHCP database file is this. Under the system root, that is Windows, C Windows. Under the system 32, there is a directory called DHCP, and in that directory we have a database file called dhcp.mdb. Now this DHCP database is automatically backed up every 60 minutes or can be backed up manually also. So automatically every 60 minutes it will back up the information, but we can also back up, and you can reconcile the DHCP database to repair the inconsistencies. Now we can reconcile the database to repair the database also. There is an option to reconcile the database. So if suppose we are feeling some inconsistencies, so we can reconcile the database to repair it. Then we can move the database to a new DHCP server when the DHCP server service is moved. So we can also move the database from one server to other server. So it is called migrating the DHCP server. That means we have one server which is working right now, and we want to migrate that server to other server. So we have to move the database. We have to just install the role on the other server first, and then we have to export the data from the current server and then import the data from the other server. So we can migrate the DHCP server by exporting the DHCP data from the old server and importing it to the new server. We can use the PowerShell command or NetShell command to do that. So what we have here, if you right click on here, then you can see these options. This is IPv4 settings. So in IPv4 settings, you have the option to create new scope, multi-scope, super scope. We have configure, replicate the failover scope. We have option to define the classes and reconcile all scopes. So this is what to reconcile and repair the database. So if we want to repair the database, we can repair it from here. Also in the properties of this IPv4, you can see automatically update settings. Enable the DHCP audit logging. It is already enabled, so we can see the logging. We can show the boot p table folder also. Now for DNS, we have this security feature option available here. Remember, for the security, we have to make sure that DNS updating IP addresses of DNS. So this option is available here. By default, it is selected that enable DNS dynamic update configuration to the setting below. That will do what? Dynamically update the DNS records only if requested by the DHCP clients, and always dynamically update DNS clients. And now it will do what? Remember I said that the records will be updated in the DNS by the client. Now if the client is not able to update, then client do what? They do ask for the DHCP server to update the record for them. Now it is selected here that only if the client asks, then update the record. Now if I select this, always dynamically update the records, then whenever the record changes, it will update it in the DNS by the DHCP server. Now this is not a good option, because it will do what? It is saying that asked by the client. So attacker can do what? Attacker can impersonate as a client and send the request to DHCP server that update the record, and try to update the false record in DNS server. So we should remove this. We should remove this to secure our DNS server, or we can configure this option here. This is all name protection. We can enable the name protection option here. It will do what? Name protection provide the following capability. Do what? The DHCP server will register a record and PTR record on behalf of a client. That means on behalf of a client, the DHCP server can update the record. But however, if there is a different client already registered with this name, so that means if the DHCP server record is, if the record is already there, the name and IP address is already there, then the DHCP update will fail. So it will not be the possibility of the hacker that the hacker will change the record, because if the record is already there, then the record will not be updated. And if the record is not there, then it will be updated. And this is what the name protection option here. Now you see, when I enable this, these options are removed, because now DHCP server will only update the records if the record is not there, or we can just disable the record updating. Then we have filter options here. We can allow the MAC address filtering. We can allow deny or allow list, deny and allow list. These lists we can create here under the filtering. We can create the allow list, we can create the deny list by the MAC addresses. That means which MAC addresses can be allowed to have IP addresses with this scope or this server, and which MAC addresses is not allowed to have the IP addresses from this server. This is the proper. These options are available here in under this property. We have the failover option also, and we have the advanced option also. In advanced option, we can see the database log path. This is the log file path, and it is also a path for the database. And when you select right click on the server, now this is the server we have. So when we right click on the server, we have the option to take the backup and restore. So when we take the backup, it will take the backup of our database. Also we can restart, stop and pause the server, and also we can delete the server. When I go to the properties of this server, I can see the database path and the backup path. So database path is the same here. We can browse. This is the path in this directory, or this is the backup file path. So when you take the backup, it will go to this location, and the file of the database is here. So when you go to that location, I'm opening this folder, so we can see this is the database file. So in this file we have all the database of our DHCP, all the configuration and everything. And when we take the backup, it goes here. Right now there is a backup for this new file here. So there is one backup here already there. Why? Because it takes the backup after every 60 seconds automatically. Now if you want to take the backup right now, then what you will do, you will right click it and you will take the backup here, and it is asking you to save where you want to save the backup. So right now it is saving it to the same location. This is the default location, or if we want, then we can create the new location. I will save it here in the same location. Now the backup is taken. Now you can browse and see what backup file we have there. So we have the backup file here. Now if we want to restore it, now for example, suppose I delete this scope. You delete the configuration changes, you do the deletion, configuration changes or whatever, and you want to recover it. So what you can do, you can restore it from the backup. So you will select this and then it will say where is your backup file. It goes to the default location automatically, or if you have changed the path, then it will go to other. You can go to that other path where your backup file is. So my backup file is in the same location, so I'll go and say OK, and it says in order to changes to take effect, the service must be stopped. So I say OK, it will be restarted. So it is restarting the DHCP services, and then it will recover the backup, and the scope which I have deleted, it will be back. It is successfully restored, and when you see here, the scope is now back and the server is getting active one by one. Now this one is also active, this one is also active, and we can see the scope is also back. So this is how we can take the backup. So what we have seen today is that how we can, what are the security options we have. We have the option to enable the name protection, why it is needed. We have the option to make sure the server is highly available, like we can create the split scope and the failover DHCP configuration. Also we can do what? We can take the backup and restore the backup of our DHCP configurations.